Okay, guys, like I said, tonight is going to be all about the potholes I want you to avoid. Now, here's the thing. In the first year of commercial brokerage, you're trying to figure this stuff out for yourself. You're going to go down some dark alleys. You're going to make some wrong turns. And what we have found is this skill set is simple, but it's not easy. But what kind of the biggest thing to speed up people's time horizon is not by doing anything magical. It's by doing less of the wrong things. So I'm going to encourage you to not waste time on certain activities, not waste time doing things the wrong way. The faster that you can do things the right way on purpose, the faster you're going to get results, and results in the forms of listings, results in the forms of sales, results in the forms of dollars in your pockets, right? So that's what we are here for. So let's talk about that, right, folks? Okay, so top mistakes that the do's and don'ts of commercial brokerage. Now, we're going to do this David Letterman style, right? We're going to do a countdown from 10 all the way to 1, and 1 being obviously the most important. All of these are important, but as we move through the list, they get more and more important, right? And this comes from one of my best students. She did a really killer job her first year, and I said to her when she got done with her first year, I'm like, what are the things that you wish you didn't do that you wish you could have learned from? And this is what we came up with, and I sprinkled in some of my experiences as well. Because the idea is, guys, get you going on the right path as quickly as possible. Time is the only non-renewable resource. We can make more money, we can do a lot of things, but we can never buy time. So the point being is, guys, as quickly as possible, you want to get on the right track as soon as possible, okay? So number 1, or I should say number 10, number 1 in our list, is going to be dedicate time to research before picking up the phone. Now, if you guys have gotten the inkling that you want to work on the sales side of things as opposed to leasing, going on knocking on doors and seeing what tenants you can have, right? If you figured out that you want to work on the sales side and work with sellers, okay, many people make the mistake of research a property, dial a property, research another property, dial another property. Guys, I can't tell you how much that kills your momentum, and it flat out just kills your mojo. Okay, you can never get any momentum. You can never see a reasonable response, because if you're going through every single process, research the LLC, then you research the person's name, then you get their cell phone number, then you call the numbers, and then you do one property, you're exhausted, and you only get about 3 done a day. Okay, as opposed to block out your calendar on a Saturday. Go ahead and research as many properties as you want to go after, okay? And then make a time to have all the phone numbers and all your call lists ready to go. That way, when you hit the ground running in the morning, you know exactly who you're reaching out to, you know exactly what their phone number is, you know exactly about their property. That is the first thing in our list of 10 that I highly recommend that you guys are able to change, because if you don't change that, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to go and you're going to get frustrated. You're not going to get enough calls in, and you're going to say, this isn't for me, And what we want you to do is we really want you to be able to say, you know what, I have a system going, and if you follow the system, you will be effective. And the fastest way to become effective is to do things, batch them, so to speak. If you guys ever heard of Henry Ford, right? He created, the division of labor. He created the assembly line process. They figured out that putting a business process where everyone does one thing, what happens is you get good at it, you get fast at it, you learn the shortcuts to it, and then you send it to the next person. In this case, the next person is you. But what I'm trying to impress upon you is that if you separate the division of labor, right? If you do all, it's like pre-packaging, right? You do all of your researching. Then you from the MLS, then you do all of your number looking up, and then you do all of your dialing, and then you do all of your prospecting. The more you can break this stuff up, guys, the more efficient you're going to be, and the more momentum you're going to be able to have. Okay, so back to it. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so the next one is learn your contracts and paperwork cold. Guys, there's only a few forms that we really need to use in commercial brokerage. In fact, I talk to people all the time on the phone. And they're like, well, I don't know, make the move over to commercial, all these paperwork, nonsense, right? So what we wind up finding out, guys, is that you basically have your commercial contract for purchase and sale, okay? You have to learn LOIs, and you have to learn your listing agreement. And typically leases, that's not something you're going to get super duper involved with. Usually the attorney will write one up, but if your local board of realtors has like a generic lease, that's it. But you're only talking about four pieces of paper, right, guys? So very important to understand. You get those 4 pieces of paper understood and you understand exactly what you're trying to do with them, they become your friends, not your enemies. So very, very important to get that, guys. So the next thing is, and this is a mamma jamma, guys, by a show of hands, do me a favor, tell me how many of you have ever put somebody in your car, residential or commercial, ever put someone into your car, you're so excited to show them a house, you're so excited to show them a building, you're so excited to show them a space, that you forgot to do the number one thing, the most important thing on earth, which is qualifying them, okay? So very, very important. Do not put anybody in your car unless you have thoroughly qualified them, right? Very, very super duper important. All right, so I see from the comments, I see, oh, Melissa's on from Sarasota. Hey, how are you, Melissa? Sherry's on from Powder Springs, Georgia. Welcome, welcome. We have Josh on from Birmingham, Alabama. Good to see you, pal. We have Dayton, Ohio. We have Fort Myers. Awesome. Darrell, currently not in commercial, but he will be soon. Catherine Duncan from Tampa. Love it, love it, love it, guys. So, okay, we have students from all over the place. Loving it, okay? Cool. So, guys, remember, do not put anybody in your car just because they can fog up a mirror. That they have like a pulse, you know, and they can, you know, fog up a mirror with their breath does not mean you should put them in your car. Think about it this way, guys. We have 2 things to sell in this business and 2 things only. And we talked about, I touched on it just briefly before. We have our time, which is a non-renewable resource, and we have our knowledge. You better guard both of them with your life. Here's what I mean. Everybody, let's do a fun little equation here, okay? Everybody do me a favor. Throw out what you want to make in the next 12 months. Put that into the comments, right? Put what you want to make, 300,000, 200,000, 150,000, 400,000, whatever that is, right? And I'm going to give you a really cool formula to figure out what your hourly rate is, right? So much of us, we were just like, I just want to make XYZ a year. Guess what? You need to know what your hourly rate is so so you can learn what work is not worthy of you, okay? So Josh Knight says 100,000. Love it. Josh, 100,000 divided by 2,000 work hours, that's $50 an hour. Your time is worth $50 an hour. You should not be doing anything that is worth less than $50 an hour. Melissa Goldberg, 300,000. Love it. 300,000 divided by 2,000 work hours, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks of the year. Your time is worth $150 an hour. Don't you dare do anything worth less than $150 an hour. Jeremy Critt. Hey, Jeremy, how are you? So Jeremy wants to make $1 million. Guess what? That's $583 an hour. I just know that because I'm a weirdo, and I just know that that's the millionaire number, $583 an hour. But basically, you do the math, and 2,000 hours for simple math, it's going to be $500 an hour. Okay. Sherry Capers, 300,000. Right, guys? So you're getting the point. Take whatever it is you want to make and divide it by 2,000. What that'll enable you to do is say, oh man, should you be driving people around in your car, taking 1, 2, 3 hours out of your afternoon if you haven't put them through a stringent qualifying process? Should you be doing searches for people and spending time, searching the market for people just because they said, oh, well, yeah, I'm interested in buying a building? Go to their location, qualify them. And here's what I mean. Figure out why they like it, why they don't like it. Look at the parking lot, look at the offices, look at the warehouse, look at the clear, find out why. You almost need to go in there with the attitude, in a nice way, of like, why should I invest my time helping you? You have to prove to me that you have a big enough problem, because what will happen is, guys, if you don't push hard enough, and I was a young broker once too, okay, excuse me, didn't push hard enough, what winds up happening is you're around chasing your tail. And for someone that doesn't really need it, it's like a nice to have, but not a have to have. And at the end of the day, they ghost you. Why? Because they never needed it in the first place. Okay, guys, if you just follow these 10 things I'm going to give you today, I'm going to save you so much time and put so much more money in your pocket by doing less of the wrong things. And driving around unqualified buyers and tenants is one of the wrong things. With me? Cool. Okay. So I touched on it just a second ago. Knowing what your time is worth. So for those of you that said they want to make 300,000, so your time is worth $150 an hour. Does it make any sense for you to be making a flyer, for putting a property on the MLS, for you to be putting a property on LoopNet? Any of that? Sending out emails to people that responded to your LoopNet ad, say. If you can find a $15 or $20 an hour employee to do that for you, guess what? Offload that off your plate. The reason being, you'll never be able to average $150 an hour if you're not already maximizing your time. You'll never be able to get to that average if you're doing $15 an hour. Why? Because $150, well, last I checked, per hour is 10 times 15. So you're going to be dragging your hourly average way, way down. Okay. Very, very important. So know your time, number one, and don't do anything that's not worth your time. So offload all the things that aren't. Prospecting, presenting, and following up are the three most important things you could possibly do with your time. Those are the only things that are going to get you $150, $200, $300, $500 an hour in Jeremy's case, right? Super duper important, guys, to understand what it takes, because if you're ever doing things, if you don't have an admin, you are one. Gary Keller said that, right? So very, very important to start offloading those things as quickly as possible. Does this make sense, guys? Give me a thumbs up in the chat, or type to +1 in the chat, so that I know that this is making any sense. It's like opening your eyes at all, because if you want to make 100 grand this year and your hourly rate's $50 an hour, you should never ever do anything that you can't offload to someone for $15 an hour. Right? You with me? Because there just aren't enough hours in the day. Not unless you want to work 25 hours a day. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to. So Laura, give me the thumbs up. Cindy and Tony, awesome. Cool. All right, guys, next, create call lists and to-do lists the night before. Here's why. Your brain has this really cool function, and in the area of your brain is called the reticular activation center. Show of hands, guys. And the first time I remember experiencing this is when I went to go buy a Honda Accord, right? And I remember coming home from the dealership, I looked at it, I test drove it, I was kind of going to sleep on it, it was, big purchase or whatever. And on the way home from the dealership, I started noticing every other car on the road seemed to be a Honda Accord, right? I'm like, wow, look, there's one. Wow, look, there's one. That is the reticular activation center. This is why you want to make your list and create and your to-do list the night before. Here's how it works. And this is how you game it, guys. This is like brain hacking. The way it works is this. Your brain it's a supercomputer, and it wants to connect dots for you. Okay. Once you bring something to your awareness, and whether you guys believe in woo-woo or you don't, doesn't matter, right? There's a science and there's a woo-woo side to this, right? When you start thinking and manifesting or start thinking about what you want to do the next day, I want to call Joe Smith in the morning. You might wake up in the morning with a new angle to bring to Joe Smith's, or a new property they want to put in front of Joe Smith. You might, when you create your to-do list at the end of the day, you're going to have insights in the morning, because as you sleep, your brain is filtering out short-term memory, and it's holding things for the long term, and it's acting like a computer to help solve the problems that you present to it, right? So when you create your call list, when you create your to-do list, it's going to start solving those problems for you. So you wake up in the morning, and next thing you know, you're like, oh yeah, maybe I should do this with Joe Smith. But had you not created that Smith and put Joe Smith, created that list and put Joe Smith in your brain so that your brain could kind of mull it over the night, you would not have had that insight. So very, very important, guys. Create your call lists and to-do lists the night before. Next. Now, this is an important one. Do not sign NDAs and CAs, commission agreements, so non-disclosure agreements and commission agreements, without reading the fine print. It's amazing to me, guys, how often some people, they try to get you to sign some ridiculous piece of paper that basically handcuffs you and gives away your client's vital contact information, just so that they'll send you like an offering memorandum or something like that, right? So be very, very careful what you're getting yourself into. Once you put your name on it, then it's legally defensible in a court of law. It's legally binding. So be very, very aware of what you're getting yourself into, what you're obligating yourself to when you sign an NDA or a CA. You with me, guys? Make sense? Cool. Okay, let me hop over to Facebook for just a quick second. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, you do me a favor. If any of this stuff makes a ton of sense, hop over on the live sometime. Really would love to hear from you. Okay. But we have, okay, Sherry said, okay, Josh +1. Okay, guys, with me. Awesome. Cool. All right. So again, do not sign any paperwork without reading the fine print. Next part is, okay, guys, now I'm going to speak to the residential folks that are watching this right now. Okay. On the residential side of things, there's a little bit of a mentality, because there's so many people that can provide you leads. There are like these companies that are like, oh, you're going to get 10, 20, 30, whatever leads in your inbox every month. And all you have to do is stroke us a check for $1,000, $1,500. How many of you guys, by show of hands or show of thumbs up, have ever been told that before, right? So on the commercial side of things, it's very different. Think of it big picture, guys. Okay. On the residential side of business, everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a roof over their head. So what that means is every single breathing soul that you run into at the gas station, at the grocery store, at the PTA, at the softball game, at your bowling league, whatever, at church, whatever, anyone you run into is a potential lead. So think of how many thousands and thousands and millions of leads there are out there. So you get these data companies that take it, they have these landing pages and they funnel the stuff down and then they sell it to you. Okay. That works on the residential side of things. On the commercial side of things, you cannot buy business. Okay. Commercial are a very, very small niche of people. How many people do you know that own a home or an apartment or live in an apartment, right? Everybody. How many people do you know that own commercial buildings? Very, very few. Even if you're a broker and you've been in this business for 30 years, I guarantee you it's a fraction of the people that you know versus the people that you know own commercial real estate. Okay. So by the same token, our prospecting process is very different. You need to be very, very specific in the sense of like shotgun versus a sniper. Shotgun takes and spreads pellets far and wide. You can't do that in the commercial business. You have to be a sniper. You have to find the building. You have to, research the LLC. You have to find out who the owner is. You got to find the owner's name. Then you got to call them. Similar snipers, they'll get themselves up in a tree and they'll make sure the wind is right and they'll sit and they'll wait and wait and wait for one shot. Very similarly, that's what we do, guys. So you cannot buy the business, guys. You have to have a very, very specific, very targeted prospecting approach in order to exceed in this business. If you want to take more than your share of listings, you have to do what other people are not doing. And that's precisely what we show people how to do. Okay. So by the way, guys, if you want to learn a little bit more about like how to take more listings this year and hit the ground running for 2023, give me a +1 in the chat. Like just want to make sure that I'm talking to the right crowd. Because if we can talk about something else, like we could talk about like Dolphins football or the Yankees or something like that. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. I'm talking to the right crowd here. Okay. Who we got here? All right. People are popping in. Good. All right. So guys, think of it this way. Okay. You cannot buy the business. You have to have the right game plan. Without the right game plan, put it this way. You do everything that everybody else does, you're going to get the same result as everyone else. And if on average, people get average results, guess what? You're going to get the same. So when people are running for the exits, you run for the entrance. When people are running for the entrance, you run for the exits. It's called being contrarian. If you do it, if you always get what you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, you gotta try something different. And here's what I mean. You have to have a contrarian business approach. What we do is very, very contrarian. Now, learn how to speak, to prospect. Having trouble reading today, allergy medicine. Learn to let the prospect speak and really listen, okay? Guys, we got 2 of these and 1 of these, okay? So real estate is a business of extroverts. We love talking to people. We love interacting with people. We love shaking hands, kissing babies, the whole 9, right? Unfortunately, our natural predisposition that makes us good at going out and meeting strangers, we shoot ourselves in the foot because oftentimes we talk when we should be listening. All right, I'm gonna say it again. Oftentimes we talk when we should be listening. I guarantee you, if you doubled the amount of time that you were listening, you would double your income because most people talk too darn much. I've seen many a deal that people talk themselves out of rather than talking themselves into. Sometimes, and especially in brokerage, less is more. A lot of my students, I'll tell them, guys, if you're spending more than 90 seconds on the phone to get an appointment, you're wasting time. We're not here to play patty cake. We're here to make sure we can help somebody, make sure they have a need, book the meeting, and get there. We're not here to, because what will happen is you'll talk yourself out of the meeting. I promise you guys. So get on, get off, 90 seconds, boom. We went through some scripts the other day, 1 minute and 21 seconds. 90 seconds at most. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't go talking about what happened, in Sugar Hill, Texas in 1974. Don't go talking about football. Don't talk about, the fact that the roses are blooming. None of that matters. You're there to help them solve a problem. So when you get to the listing appointment, then it's very important to let them speak so you can understand them, because people want to do business with people that they like, know, and trust and feel understood by. Very important. Okay. So make sure you are learning letting the prospect speak and really, really listen. Okay. Now, Nobody's going to like this, okay? But I'm going to tell you anyhow. Uncle Chris is here to tell you, you don't go chasing these things in the beginning, okay? Have you ever seen, by show of hands, you ever seen a dog chase a school bus, right? Well, my dog as a kid, his name was Bentley, right? My dog used to chase the school bus when us kids would get on the school bus. And guess what? If he caught the school bus, do you think he'd even know how to drive it? The point is no. And sorry, guys, but in the beginning, there is a certain amount of seasoning in brokerage. There's just like, you're probably not going to close a $20 million deal before you close a 10 million, a 5 million, a $2 million deal. It's kind of like going to the top rung of the ladder first day out of the gate. It's likely not going to happen. If you saw a skinny little kid go into the weight room, okay, and he put 500 pounds on the bench press and was about to go take it, what would you say, right? You say, you're crazy. What are you doing? You got to work your way up. First, you start with the bar. Then you put some 45s on. And then you start working and slowly and slowly and slowly. And after a couple of years, you can probably bench press, several hundred pounds. But in the beginning, guys, don't chase those 5 million, 10 million, $20 million deals, because what will happen is you'll never go through the whole process of A to Z. Here's what I mean. In brokerage, we have a process that you need to learn about 6 proper skills to be able to close your first deal. That's why it's so difficult. FYI, guys, there's a 97% failure rate in the first year of commercial real estate. I'm sorry, in the first 2 years. 95 in the first, 97 in the first 2. Okay? Why? Because most people are not willing to help others. They view other brokers as competition, and they're coming from a place of scarcity. And number 2 is there's not a lot of good training. And number 3, people are doing the wrong things. That's why I'm trying to educate you guys on the things to avoid, because if half of your time was spent on the wrong things, guess what? You're only going to be half as productive as you could have been, right? So with regard to that, do not chase huge deals. I would rather you close a 1,000 square foot lease and cash a $200 check than chase after 50,000 square foot leases and get none done. Why? Because you have to go through ages. There's a whole process, 6 or 7 steps you need to go through in order to be able to close it. And if you're always doing steps 1, 2, and 3, you're never going to get good at 4, 5, 6, 7, right? You're always doing 1, 2, 3. You're never going to be well-rounded. So do not chase the huge deals. Guys, whether you like it or not, people can smell if you're a new broker or not. You use one word improperly in a sentence or in a conversation, and then they're like, Imagine if you went to the doctor's office and they said, hey, nurse, hand me that thingamajiggy. I'm going to cut his, what do you call it? Would you let that doctor cut you? More importantly, would you give that doctor your multi-million-dollar investment to try to sell, right? Similarly with a real estate broker, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to talk someone into giving a multi-million-dollar investment that they've spent their hard money on to entrust it to you, right? So if you are not seasoned enough, you're not going to be ready. The people that are selling smaller buildings, the people that are doing smaller leases, maybe they're not as seasoned as professionals, so they're willing to give you a shot. It's not that big of a deal, So very, very important, guys. Do not chase huge deals in the beginning. One of the biggest things I kept telling one of my students was stop chasing big deals, stop chasing big deals. And next thing you know, she started going after small deals, and bang, in 6 months, she closed 8 transactions. Why? Because she stopped going after $20 million, $30 million hotels that she never had a chance of closing anyhow, okay? And a lot of brokers, what they'll do is they'll send their newbies, they'll send them out into the field, be like, yeah, go chase that, because what their idea is, let send you on a fool's errand, which you're probably not going to get any success from anyhow. You're not going to know what to do with it, and you're going to have to bring them in on it if and when it comes through. So guys, I promise you, do not chase big deals in the beginning. Once you start kind of getting your weight up, you do 1,000 square foot, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Okay, now we're talking. But you got to start getting some good sized deals under your belt before you start going the big leagues. Okay. And finally, guys, number 1, get a mentor. Whether you decide to work with us, you decide to work with another company. There's an old saying, and it has to do with the transfer of knowledge through books. And it's the reason why we're able to see so far is because we stood on the shoulders of giants. Knowledge was passed down in literary format in the form of books. So that we were able to read from Socrates. We were able to read from Plato. We were able to read from from Marcus Aurelius, right? We're able to read 5,000 or 3,000-year-old texts and get information from people before. It's no different with a mentor, folks. What winds up happening is if you can listen to somebody who has already done the thing that you are trying to do, you're going to be so much further ahead. Why? Because you get to pole vault past all the mistakes and all the potholes that person went through to gain their knowledge, you know? So very, very important. The faster you can get a mentor in this business, number one, it keeps you from creating bad habits. Number two, it keeps you from doing the wrong things. And the more you can do the right things on purpose, the more profitable you're going to be, right? And most importantly, it speeds up the process of time. Time you can never get back. Super duper important for you to understand that if you can pay somebody for the time that they spent learning the experience, that's the fastest way to make the most amount of money in this business. Last I checked, we are all in a race against time. We don't know when our last day is coming. So I want to get to where I want to quicker than taking longer. Okay.